Firstly, since you are all regarding the criticizing the PTA, I put my hand up and say I am one of those who drafted it. It was abused later. But if we didn't have that legislation, you may not have fought this war. When we first had it, we had the LTET, we had a lot of terrorism. Yeah, members mainly of the TULF were getting killed, and we brought this liberation, the proscription of the liberation Tamil Tigers of Elam. But that law was not sufficient because they could say that we didn't belong to the LTET. We had to find a new law. And I was one of them. I was Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs. We looked at it, and we looked at, actually selected the Northern Ireland, the instance of terrorism in Northern Ireland, which was quite similar to what we had in Sri Lanka, and we brought in the Prevention of Terrorism Act. That was necessary. Whatever people may say at that time, that was in accordance with the law at that time. And it was used, but I must also admit, in time to come, it was abused. And that was the problem. But then came after 1983, we gave situation where we went beyond the terrorism that you found in Northern Ireland. We were virtually at war. So we didn't bring new legislation because you have the emergency law which was brought in. I mean, basically we had the same provisions as that was in the Defence of the Realm Act they brought for World War II in UK. The same provisions that were used in Sri Lanka was really brought in again under the Public Security Ordinance. Then thereafter the war went on, and the war was over in 2009. And we still retained the PTA. But there were questions whether PTA was sufficient, and also the abusers of the PTA, which have been mentioned by some of the members here, that when the war was over, why was the PTA going on? I also understand that. I think the Honourable Sumandiran will tell you how difficulty we had of getting people who have been locked up for 20 years under the PTA to be released, because they were insisting, the Defence Minister was insisting that there should be clearance by the intelligence. And I don't know, I couldn't understand how some of them, what were the agreements. Finally, I think we had to give instructions to release them, because there was the question of the Attorney General agreeing to release them. So we went on, then we felt that the whole nature of terrorism had changed. At one time they thought LTT was the new one. No, it wasn't. After September 11th, there was a new type of terrorism. And that type of terrorism is what we thought would come into the country. And we thought we should bring in new legislation. And I must say, the cabinet agreed at that time to this counter-terrorism law. Now, of course, people can bail out on it. But everyone was there. There was if you look at the minutes, there was no dissension on that law. As far as we were concerned, we felt it was necessary. It was drafted both with the help of experts from UK, EU, both on the intelligence field and on the legal field. It was covered by both. And then it went around the embassies, it went around Sri Lankans, all. And we brought it in. Unfortunately, the events that came in was such that we couldn't pass it. You had the 52 days followed by what happened with the Easter bomb. What we say in principle is, what you need are counter-terrorism laws, which looks at this present situation but also puts in safeguards. I am not saying bring that draft, the bill that we made, you all may not like it, but what I am saying is the PTA, even with amendments, is insufficient. What you require is a new counter-terrorism law. Kindly get your help if you want, from EU, from UK, and draft it and bring a new law. I don't think this PTA, the amendments are improvements, certainly. It strengthens the safeguards, but the approach is not sufficient. I am one who feels that there are going to be terrorist threats, and we have to meet the situation. There are committees and commissions and groups which say that you can make it under the ordinary situation. No, we can't meet it under the ordinary situation. I think the Honourable Minister and I both studied when we were the law faculty the famous case of Liversidge versus Anderson and the dissenting judgment of Lord Atkins. Laws are not silent. It may not be silent, but it has to speak the same language in different ways. So people have to be, certain suspects have to be taken in, but the safeguards are there. And those safeguards are built into the counter-terrorism laws of Europe. UK has a large number. I think Prevention of Terrorism law was repealed. There are only 2 sections. The whole lot between 2001 and now, there's a whole lot of them. We try to bring them into one legislation. That's the way you should do. But there has to be, today's terms, You have, and it's international term, it's not like LTT or IRA or anyone that operated within area. So our laws must cover that. And I don't think we have all those provisions. The ones of detaining people was all there. In the new ones, you are staying at home and you have the electronic instruments put on you so you can walk around. That really gives more freedom. So that is what we require. Many members on both sides will disagree what I say.
Honourable Member, you have 2 more minutes.
I think we have to go ahead with this. Second part is, having a law is not sufficient. You must have a competent intelligence service. And that's the problem we have. I have seen how the intelligence services operate. I've seen the information that has been given. Sometimes they are good, sometimes they are bad. And we don't have the competence. When we wanted to deal with reducing the period of detention, which you would have found, it is they who come and say don't do it. But you keep people for years, what do you find? We have gone out. I will tell you, I was there when the National Intelligence Bureau was formed. We took in the special branch. And that practice of the special branch spends most of its time looking at what the local politician does, what does the working committees here do, what the working committees do there, what do the trade unions there. You just ask how much time they spent on it. Okay, have a special branch if you want to see what politicians are doing, we are doing, and have a separate intelligence system. That is lacking. And when we were in the security, when we were in the government, we were always told that LTT is the threat. That is what happened to us. Despite the fact that some of us took up and I had to increase the focus on the terrorism, what was happening with ISIS, and then it became a big story. You know, I was reading the evidence the other day of this commission which went to April bombing. And there is this army commander who says that I objected to them searching women who are wearing hijab. Yes, I objected. But what was the use of such thing? In UK, they didn't search them. They took everything, but they put conditions in France. What has happened? Teachers have been cut in France. Some heads have been cut off. There is no problem in UK. And basically, he thought that there was a terrorist hiding under the dress of every Muslim woman. And you're laughing. Then, but what happened? Finally, who gave the information on the bomb? A woman. Now, if you went to harass the women, that would not have come. I mean, I was seated there, I know it. It was one woman who saved the situation for us.
Honourable Member, please wind up.
And, yeah, so that's have been the way. I used to question people in the Security Council to be sure that they knew what they were saying. But all the time, you take the 2 policemen who were killed in the east, what did the intelligence say? It was LTT. There was no LTT capable of killing. And they insisted. It is because Mr. Kabir Hashim's secretary gave some information that we got onto this track. And what is wrong is we have no analysis. We are incapable of analyzing. That's the biggest problem in a security system. We cannot analyze. I remember when I was Prime Minister in 2002, they said, or 2003, that in the East, Corona was increased, doubling and trebling the number. I think the Honourable Minister, I didn't believe it. I asked some of the foreign intelligence agencies, they say you cannot double or treble the number. But that went on, that we had allowed them to come and go, and this is what happened. Finally, there was no numbers. And you based a strategy which failed. Is that what you're asking for? There are many shortcomings. The worst is the fact that they cut each other's throats regularly. What you have to prevent in legislation is throat cutting in the intelligence services before you do anything else. I think this House has to look into this whole system and look at what is the intelligence services that we require. Look at what happened with the commission. To begin with, I read the evidence. I go to the library and read the evidence now. What some of those officers said at the commission is not what actually took place. I was there the day it was blasted. I know what they told me. And the foreign intelligence services said you have to professionalize the intelligence services. So if you don't bring that in and the new law both together, you can't face terrorism. You have to face terrorism. And look what happened. I mean, this House should do an investigation as to why the one member of the House, Rishad Baduddin, was kept. It's a breach of privilege. Can they answer why they took in Mr. Rishad Baduddin? So that shows the depth. I think we have to inquire into it. It has to be raised. There are no issue. So what I find is that actually this is a view that some of our security people have, expand the PTA. No. In my view, you need a new law and you need a new system. So that reason, though this, I must admit, this really improves the safeguards for people in it, this law by itself does not meet our requirement for a new system where we have to deal with, especially with terrorism of new types. We'll have another type. No one knows what will come in Ukraine after all this war is over. So we can't guess, but we need flexibility and the laws. For this reason, I would say that I cannot support this bill because I think we require a modern intelligence system and the modern laws. Thank you.